Hi, my name is Iman Bashir, and welcome to my artist talk. So, I am a current fine art student. I'm in my third year at BCU, the School of Art, St. Margaret's Road. I'm currently in level six, and I kind of create work about everything and anything. I would describe my practice as subjective to what my cultural or my ideological beliefs are at the time. Um, and I think that my practice kind of bases off of me getting bored and moving to another subject or a different area that I want to start creating in. My practice doesn't exactly have a specific subject, or I don't kind of go through the course or went through the course thinking and planning ahead. I kind of, in all of my projects, sort of go with what I'm feeling at the time. So you could say it is me just getting bored and moving on, but that's kind of how I would describe my practice as an artist. I think that throughout the course, or even throughout the years that I've studied fine art as a subject, I always thought it was extremely important to establish my practice as an artist. However, I strongly believe that my practice is not focused and it's not singular. And I believe that I have different and multiple ways of targeting a view or responding to a body of work or responding to a brief. Um, and at the time, I just kind of implement different ways and different forms of how I like to embody ideas, whether that be through different materials that I use or a singular material. So, the first piece I actually want to introduce is known by the name Isolation. I originally created this project in 2021. And at the time, I was at De Montfort University in my first year, and the whole meaning and story behind this piece was actually based on the pandemic, because we were pretty much at the brink and at the peak of COVID-19. It pretty much explored the ideas of feeling isolated, mental health, a personal journey with me having anxiety and depression, and how COVID actually affected me and other artists. For example, we didn't actually have access to a studio space at the university, and I found myself being drawn to a lot of digital work. So this piece was actually influenced by Wes Norman, who used Scotch tape um, to create a series of photographs, which kind of consisted of women and men creating bizarre expressions, and you can feel the emotional connection between yourself and the photograph. So I wanted to mimic um, that usage and the way he made the audience feel by creating my own series based on COVID-19. So the aim of the project was to actually challenge the audience and get the audience thinking and questioning stuff like, why does she feel this kind of way? What is the sellotape doing to her face? And is it purposefully stretching and distorting her face to show emotions? Um, and that's exactly what I wanted to do with the project itself. It was mainly more asking, getting the audience to react and have a reaction, um, and pretty much show a sense of confusion, yeah, feeling a bit shocked when looking at it. Um, And that's kind of what the project was sort of about. So, due to the actual restrictions, we weren't able to exhibit our work. However, we did have our own online virtual reality exhibition where we were able to communicate with other um, artists in the university and share our work. And our first couple of projects were actually based online due to the restrictions, and so we didn't really gain any sort of experience in terms of being able to plan our own exhibition and exhibit our work. However, I did create my own plans to possibly be able to exhibit our work, and my own work, in the future. And so I think that if I was able to ever, exhibit this series, of photographs, I would definitely, um, aim high and be ambitious with the size. And so I would most likely stretch these photographs out to probably the size of a billboard, just because I believe they're quite striking images by themselves. Um, but yeah, that was, isolation. So the second project I actually wanted to introduce was organic shapes. And at the beginning of this module, I was quite intrigued in the art of portraiture and movement. So I began with a starting point, which was quite crucial for development and my reflection on portraiture. So, after a significant amount of research into the book Extraordinary People Portraits in the Garman Ryan collection, I recognized that not all portraits need to be the same as contemporary art, and it can take various mediums. And so I began to display, this as I created a few different sketches using water, color paints, and ink pens to create self portraitures as well as other pieces. And I was quite inspired by the artist Barbara Krov, which she drove me to experiment and utilize the portrait to express the movement in the colors and the materials. And I found that that method was actually quite successful, and I did enjoy the effect it had on the viewer. However, I felt that it didn't really convey the movement that I had hoped it would. So I began researching in different ways I could actually explore, um, ex- expression and abstraction throughout the hybrid of using organic and geometric shapes while still incorporating the aspect of portraiture and the mixed media between the two. So, my first piece was a digital print of a series of paintings which showed the aspect of portraiture, color, dimension, and movement. And I used the software Adobe Photoshop and Illustrate to allow me to really experiment freely, while still sticking to the aim of drawing the viewer in by using the movement of the facial features, in the actual portrait itself. And I felt like this outcome was, extremely successful, and it was inspired by Akok Adogudu, who pushed me out of my comfort zone in terms of creating digital art. Um, so I began photographing my own face, and playing with saturation, brightness, contrast, structure, warmth, highlights, shadowing, um, of all three pieces and all three photographs. The pretty much the aim of this piece was to work using the hybrid of portraiture, organic, and geometric shapes to transport the viewer into a brighter, vibrant, and abstract environment. So, by using the colors such as pink, purple, and blue to express and represent the dim vibrance that it kind of gives off. And by using the color blue, I felt that commonly known as feeling blue or down in the blues. Um, and I felt that surrounding the blue portraiture with the pink and the purple, against the bright orange canvas shows a sense of like hope and highlights and feelings, of the real world. And this time, the person in the piece were feeling low but escaping to the real world. Um, However, the movements of the facial features represented change and the time moving on. Um, so that was kind of about the first piece. So after the success of my first piece, I thought it was quite important for me to learn the importance of detail, as I do think of myself as a minimalist artist. And so in this piece, I decided to explore the distortion of the face to create movement, um, and I think it was quite important to use a software to create digital movement and to have it flow like I wanted it to. And so I experimented and developed with other physical sketches as well, using chalk and paper, and being able to see how those helped me with development was actually quite interesting, because I felt that after working with digital arts for so long, going back to drawing and sketching, the digital art was actually a lot more um, effective. And I felt as if pictures that wanted to show more movement and wanted to show the actual flow of the distorted faces looked a bit more effective in its original form. The last piece of artwork that I was able to create that was part of this organic shapes series was another representation of organic shapes meeting geometric shapes. And the visual imagery consisted of acrylic paint on vinyl, as vinyls have their own movement but represent their own music and aura. And so, therefore, I decided to show the original organic geometric shapes together to create movement against the vinyls. This idea was inspired by the artist Annie Lorak and the movement and abstraction of their work, alongside research into form, satisfying art, expanded field painting, and hybridity. Um, and I felt this work was specifically open to ambiguous interpretation, through each viewer having their own relationship with colors, imagery, and experience in a space. And so I decided to combine the making of my own work with 3D against the small walls to show an interesting dynamic through the shapes and form. And so I felt the use of the continuous lines and the waves drew the reader and the viewer in by the movement and the vibrant colours. And I felt as if this last work successfully showed the development and imaginative element throughout all of my pieces in organic shapes. So that was organic shapes. So another project that I wanted to present was also um, Islamic art, and it was basically in correlation with my dissertation essay, which was they were both answering the question, how does line and shape hold symbolism when representing Islamic beliefs? And so, in the essay as well as my work, I attempted to um, show how line and shape held symbolism in Islamic beliefs. So I put together different elements of artistic discipline which relates to line and shape. And some of those examples were calligraphy, Arab-esque, and geometry, um, where I also researched other artists related to those disciplines, and incorporated academic and artistic research to help answer the question using the artwork as well as the dissertation. Um, so a few examples of the artists that I contextually researched was Maida Noor, Louis Cartier, and Dyla Sofodio and Renfro. Um, and these topics predominantly interest me as a Muslim. I believe I have quite a spiritual and personal connection with the designs and the aesthetics of the work, which represent my religious background, that I'm extremely passionate about. Um, I also used other academic research within which consisted of books on Islamic art forms, such as Islamic Arts by Jonathan Bloom and Sheila Blair, as well as other academic documents and articles, such as Evolution of Islamic Geometric Patterns by Yahya Abdullahi Muhammad and Rashid bin MB, that helped support my argument. Um, and these are pretty much a few of the main works that I had created in response to the question. And so, in conclusion, I finish off my artist talk with introducing my last and my current project that I am working on, which is known by the name Subdivision. And in this project, I predominantly focus on recycling materials to create futuristic, sustainable accessory pieces. Um, and this is currently inspired by Mecha, which is a science fiction Japanese art style, which is kind of portrayed with the characters of giant robots or machines controlled by people, which can also be depicted as humanoids. Um, and I do this by taking apart hardware such as PC parts and creating modern upcycled accessory pieces such as headpieces. Um, and I am currently working on an arm piece. This is also another design of upcycling accessories and upcycling different parts of the PC. And I feel as if I definitely want to carry on um, showing the detail and the minimalist feel that these headsets do have to them. And while building them, I actually created my own small clay pieces to combine alongside the PC parts to create more depth. And so taking apart and rebuilding a lot of the headsets which have a functionality to them was extremely important for development, as I realized some of the pieces I did want to keep and some of the pieces I didn't want to. And I also feel as if current plans to exhibit these in the degree show is to have the actual photographs displayed on a wall um, to a really big scale. Um, and so those are currently my plans for the degree show and to exhibit. Um, and so I think that taking into account all of the work that I've done through the years, um, I have definitely not stuck to just one aspect of art that I'm interested in, and I did use different starting points which I would identify myself as an artist who uses again different starting points and different briefs and different ways to respond to my own ideas. Um, so yeah, that was kind of just a little insight into Iman Bashir as an artist. So thank you so much for watching.